Hey guys, Paul here. This is another development type update where I'm going to be adding a feature or tweaking a feature, whatever you want to call it. All right, so we're in a small fighter here. Let's take a look at it. Small fighter. Here's a pirate fighter. It's 4 guns. It may or may not resemble a pretty famous ship. Bonus points if you guess which pretty famous ship this guy resembles. The name of it is a big hint. Its name is the Fury. If you know the name, let me know, and we'll both have a laugh. So this fighter, its cockpit is right in the front. When we're in the cockpit view, the new cockpit view for Void Destroyer 2, everything's good, right? Everything's fine. There's no problems. Nothing really jumps out at you. Well, a bunch of years ago, I decided not to make things easy for myself and to have both small ships, large ships, medium ships, every ship in the game flyable. But in Void Destroyer, there wasn't a cockpit view. It was sort of this chase view here, or this faraway chase view. But in Void Destroyer 2, we have the proper cockpit view. So so I decided, you can fly any ship in Void Destroyer. Void Destroyer 2 takes that also. You can fly any ship. You can also have real-time strategy control. But if we add this cockpit view, and then we take, our decisions from long ago that are sometimes hard to predict the consequences of. Let's see what happens when we switch to that large ship over there. Hop into tactical mode. Hit the switch ship button, right? So everything's fine. Here's our faraway view. Here's our close-up view. Everybody's happy, right? Let's switch to cockpit. All right. So who's happy right now? Pretty much nobody, right? So this cockpit view looks exactly like the cockpit view from the fighter. Not just because I'm reusing this cockpit, which I'll probably change to a different cockpit, but the perspective of it is exactly the same, where it's as if you're seeing the ship from the front. You're actually not. The perspective is actually from about the middle of the ship. See where the guns kind of come out. So right now the cockpit view for cap ships needs a lot of work. We're going to do some of that work today to make it a lot cooler, for both me and you guys, so none of us are screaming at the screen how lame this cockpit view for cap ships is. Okay, so once again we're in Notepad++. A lot of development starts in here. It's kind of amusing, but a lot of the game is data driven, so you have the data, it gets written by the game engine, and stuff happens on the screen. So we're going to need a few things for this enhanced cockpit view or bridge view if you're thinking about a capital ship to work. One of those things, we're going to have to tell the game engine where the cockpit is positioned on the model. Instead of it just being in the center of the model, we're going to tell it where it is. So we're going to call this cockpit actual position. And I'm going to find this value in just a moment. I'm just going to leave it at 0 for now. The other thing I want to do is in these meshes here, this is the 3D model. So this is called a preim. That frigate's called a preim. It needs a 3D model specifically for the cockpit, and I'll explain a little bit later. I'm going to call it cockpit preim, or maybe, yeah, cockpit preim is a good name. So that's that. The other thing we need to do, I believe, is some of these turrets here. Here's all the stuff about turrets. It's got at least frigate turrets. We're going to put a flag here. Show in cockpit. We're going to set that to true. Okay, so I'm going to code these into the game engine. Behind the scenes, I don't want to bore you guys. Maybe I'll show a little bit of it at the end, but I'll show the reading of these. It's very basic stuff, and you guys saw that in the other video. I'll do that, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we're in Visual Studio right now, so what we need to do, we need to unhide the turrets. And you might be thinking, well, why hide the turrets in the first place? And I'll show you. I'll show you when I unhide them. So I'm going to call some stuff here. I'm going to say unhide turrets for cockpit. Set them visible. But we don't loop through all the turrets. We loop only through the turrets that have this flag set, this shown cockpit flag. So I'm going to do that because it's a little complicated. I'll do that off camera. It's a little complicated because there's all kinds of turrets. There's primary turrets, primary weapon turrets, which function just like your guns, where if you hit the fire button they shoot. They're in a slightly different category for AI reasons. And then there's just like turrets that usually do their own thing. So there's two different categories of turrets, and I need to loop through them properly to make sure I'm getting the right ones, the ones that match this data file. Like here we have point defense turrets. Here we have primary turrets, so there's a little bit of a distinction. So I'll do that off camera instead of having you guys fumble around with me. And we're back in game. Let's see what happens when we switch to that other ship. Nothing happened, of course, because we're not in the cockpit view. Let's switch to the cockpit view. And now we see our turrets. So as you can see, the turrets look really goofy, just sort of floating up there, right? Because all we did was unhide the turrets. We didn't move the perspective yet. There goes our little fighter. So in some games, you'll see this sort of a thing happening, where modders try to put in capital ships, but the game was mostly meant for fighters and smaller ships. You'll see this sort of goofiness in the cockpit view, and I guess you can kind of ignore it. So if you're ever wondering why in some game that you're playing, you're seeing weird, goofy turrets like that, that's because a modder might have taken this approach, and the game didn't really support a nice cockpit view. They just put the perspective right in the middle. But of course, we're not going to do that. We're going to fix this in just a moment. So this is what it looks like. So I'm looping through all the turrets in the library file, which is this file right here, this text file. Looping through all these turrets, and then depending what type of a turret it is, if it's a primary, secondary, or auto turret, then I go into that turret and I set it visible to true, which shows it. And then I add to this counter so that the next time this loops, it'll add to that counter, and it should be all consistent. At least to my semi-sleepy mind, this makes sense. So let's run the program, let's compile, and then we're going to see if we crash or if we get the right result. So we're in Blender right now, and why are we in Blender? Well, we're going to modify this mesh of this ship. We're going to modify it to support that cockpit view. So in Void Destroyer 2, there are things like these bridges, right? Whoops, where we go? There we are. There are things like these bridges here where you expect that there's like the players there, or maybe it's a view area or something. Well, I always imagine that the player physically is actually somewhere in here, far beneath, plates of armor, not in this really visible thing that could be really easily shot at. But for the cockpit view, or the bridge view for this ship, we're going to imagine that the player is going to see this from around this perspective. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, because of course you don't want to mess with the original, and we're going to delete this bridge, and it looks like I already had it here. We're going to delete the whole thing. There it is. And now this is going to be our mesh for when we're for when we're in the cockpit in this ship. So I'm going to export this to Ogre's format. Ogre is the rendering engine. I'm going to export this. And I already added these flags, if you guys remember. Cockpit mesh actual, cockpit actual position. Actually, we can cover this while we're talking about the other things. So I need to know what position to tell the game engine for this ship where to place me. And let's try to figure this out. So let's move this ship somewhere else. Let's move it to a position 0. Let's move it to position 0. So actually, if you look, this is where the camera was before, right in the center of the ship. And we're going to move it up here. So we need to know where this point is. I'm going to do this in kind of a crappy way. Maybe not so crappy. I'm going to tell my cursor to go to this selection. There it is. Now I'm going to add a cube. There we go. So this is approximately how I'm going to be looking at the ship. This is our first attempt, so we might change, like we might move it up some more. Come on. There we go. We might move it up some more. But this location here is going to tell us where this cube is in relation to this ship, because we put this ship at the 0 point. So now we're going to say X is 0, Y is negative 48.899, whoops, and Z is 41.447. Now actually Blender has different names for this. In Ogre, this is actually Z, but here it's called Y. So I'm going to reverse these guys. There we go. Bit of experience there. And let's see. In Ogre, the Z negative is forward, so I'm going to take this out too. This is, of course, from memory. I could be wrong, but we'll see. We'll see in the game in a second. And if we go back here, what's going on? Are we still compiling? We're still compiling something else. But we can go to ship cam. And here we unhid the turrets for cockpit. So it's kind of interesting, I should mention. First, I hide the whole ship, and then I unhide specific turrets if that flag is set for them. So it might kind of seem weird to you guys that first I do one step where I hide everything and then I unhide something. It might seem weird to you guys, but and maybe it is weird. Maybe other programmers don't do it like this. But the thing is, with processors, they're so super fast that you can get away with this stuff quite a lot, where you do a little bit more work than is necessary. They're so lightning fast at doing these types of things. And besides, just flipping a flag from true to false is just pretty much instantaneous. And this only happens when we switch to the actual cockpit. It doesn't happen every loop. So we can be a little inefficient in these kinds of things. You know, the player doesn't change from one view to another very often, so we can do things like this. So might seem kind of weird to you. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just me. But programmers are kind of sort of lazy, I guess. Maybe a good programmer is a lazy programmer because they'll try to do things fast and quick and sort of robust. So if we do things like this where we overdo certain things, in this case it's very basic stuff. So that's sort of the programming mentality that I imagine is common. Kind of speaking from my experience here, I guess. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to create that mesh for that ship. So we need to go We need to create a new entity. So an entity is a 3D model on the screen. We need to create an entity. We need to attach it to the ship node. The node is the 3D sort of object that holds entities. There's all this hierarchy in game programming, but I'll save you guys the intricacies of the exact steps. Maybe I'll recap right after I do it, but I'll save you guys the typing. Okay, so this is what we came up with. We're calling this function called show cockpit mesh, and if cockpit actual mesh is not empty, or if it is empty, we just skip, we go away. And again, that's this cockpit preum. That's that mesh without its head right here, or bridge, whatever you want to call it. We create a new entity, which is a 3D model. With that mesh, we just give it a unique name so we don't crash. We take the main move node of the player ship and we attach this new entity to it. And then we take the camera node and we set its position to the cockpit actual position, which is, if you remember, it's that position of this cube. So we should pop up there. Alright, so let's see how that works. And we're back in the game. Let's switch to this ship. Let's switch to the cockpit. Let's hope everything's alright. Nope, not everything's alright. So what's going on? So we're inside of this mesh. There's some piece of data that we're not reading or we didn't set correctly. So let's try again. Okay, another attempt. And everybody holding their fingers crossed. Okay, so what's going on? It looks like we're in the right position, but something is weird with... First of all, we don't see these turrets in the front of us. Okay, stuff is goofy, right? Let's switch to our other ship here. Oh wow, what's going on? So one thing I can tell right away is there's something going on with shadows. So I definitely need to make sure that the same shadows are set for this model and the other model. And yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that first and go on from there. So this attempt should fix the shadows, and another little issue that I realized while fixing the shadows. So here we are on the bridge of our ship, except we don't see the cockpit. We do see the turret in front of us. We don't see the two turrets in front of us, so the flag is not correctly set. So what we need to do is we need to make sure those turrets show up. We need to make sure that the bridge, the cockpit mesh shows up, and we're probably going to raise the cockpit up a little bit. It looks like it's a little too close. I want the view a little better. I want to see the front of the ship, so I might actually even push it forward. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, another attempt. Cool. So now we have the cockpit 3D model in front of us. I changed it to be a little more capital ship-like. I also raised the cockpit up a little higher. The turrets are still not showing up, so we're gonna have to do a little bit more debugging in this. And I might do something with that ship not being so static. The cockpit moves, but not the ship itself. I might do something about that. We'll see. But we're starting making progress, and let's keep going. Let's fix up those turrets. Okay, we're back in the game, and this time I added some enemies to have the turrets fire on. I'm going to switch to the cockpit mode. There it is. I'm going to turn on crew control so all my turrets are automatic. I'm going to turn off time dilation. There we go. So we're having a much nicer cockpit view than before. We see the turrets firing. We see the point defense turrets firing. We see some explosions, things like that. Much better than before, right? Before we saw from the perspective of the middle of the ship. We didn't see the turrets firing, stuff like that. So we can still improve this a lot. I can fiddle a bunch with the actual position of the bridge, of the cockpit view, whatever you want to call it. I might actually push it more forward. I might push it more back. I might push it up. Okay, why did it disappear there? There we go. We got it back. So yeah, there's a few bugs there that I have to figure out. Looks like when it shakes, the reset, when when the bridge shakes, when there's explosions, the reset pushes it down. So I'll have to fix that. So let me do some more tweaks, and we'll see what it looks like then. Okay, so we're back. We're back, and a few things took place. One thing, there's some enemies there, and another thing, we have some friends there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna switch to this ship. This is a pirate ship. It has these recoiling guns. I'm in time dilation, that's why everything's so slow. Let me just speed up. Has these cool recoiling guns, super awesome ship. The bridge goes down, right? So let's look at the front view. The front view is maybe even more interesting than this ship's. I think I would probably call it more interesting. It's got a kind of a better shape from the angle we're at. We see this cool little front turret. It's gonna shoot at the pirates flying around us. So what I'm trying to highlight is that different ships will have different sort of feels to it, and that's the other cool thing about the cockpit view. You know, cockpit with the model view. Let's hop into another ship. This is a military Corvette ship. Let's look at its cockpit view. So its cockpit view is pretty obstructed by this giant turret in front of it. But you know, it's got some personality to it, especially because we're seeing these side guns here. Um, they're almost visible here. I'm shooting at my own ship. Yeah, the view is pretty obstructed, but I think that sort of adds to the character. Let's switch to another ship. This is a beam frigate. Turn off time dilation. I guess we killed all the pirates. No, there's a few left. Well, why don't we shoot at a nice asteroid here? So this is a beam frigate. Has these really cool rail guns. Let's look at its cockpit view, and it's really obstructed. So we might push the view up. We might tweak it. But I think you get the idea. So this will enhance the game. And you were here. You were here at the beginning of it. At the very early stages, you were here with me. uh, when we're doing this. So we'll certainly keep working on this. Your feedback is appreciated. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Um, we'll certainly keep going. The other thing I want to talk about really quickly is the art style helps out here. It's very basic, so there's no way that it can look up close. Up close, it doesn't. It looks maybe even better than far away. There's some issues with far away that I have to work on. But sometimes in games, the up close view will look really pixelated because the texture resolution isn't that high. Here in Void Destroyer, because of the art style, you know, we don't have to worry about it. So the art style certainly helps. Certainly helps with that. So yeah, cockpits, right? Bridges, things like that. The last thing I want to say is when you're in Void Destroyer, most of the time, chances are, when you're piloting large ships, you're probably going to be in this view, this sort of third-person camera view where you can interact with the camera. You can shoot all your turrets in this view, like I'm doing now. My turrets are slowly going to start shooting at that ship. So, you know, keep that in mind. You're not going to really be too much in the bridge view unless you want to. It's up to you. It's up to you. Some ships have main guns. Some ships like this guy have turrets. It's up to you how you're going to control the ships. You might prefer this view with this super huge turret. You might prefer this sort of view where you see your really long ship flying there. Or you might be in a smaller ship like this guy, sort of nimbly flying around these guys, sort of shooting them like that, picking them off, maneuvering around them. So there'll be a lot of different variety. Okay, guys, I'm gonna cut it at this point. I'm gonna keep working on these features, fix all the bugs. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoy this feature. I hope that I get the chance to have a lot of cool ships. I'll try to keep on making new ships. I'll bug my artists. I'll tell them, hey, maybe try to think of the front view a little bit more with this type of bridge view. Luckily, we haven't made that many large ships, and they seem to, for the most part, look okay, but maybe some side bridges or bottom bridges, or bridges right next to giant main guns, things like that. We'll work on that. We'll try to put as much in here as possible to have a nice amount of cool variety for you guys and for myself, because hey, I love this stuff. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.